Hello, guys. Welcome back to Never Ignore the Football Podcast. This week on the podcast, we'll be looking at Marcus Rashford's impressive MBE title and all the good work he's done. We take a look over the Premier League fixtures from the weekend with a focus on Man United versus Arsenal. I know we've said we're not a Man United podcast anymore, but there just really wasn't anything else interesting going on in the league this week. And then also we'll have a little discussion about a current hot topic within the Premier League, the issue of diving. Will be an interesting conversation that we'll have later on in the episode. I'm joined again, as usual, by my co-host, Imti. Imti, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Could be better because United can't seem to win at home at all. But what can you do?
United this year, I think, just null and void the Premier League and Champions League. That's what we're here for. That's what Ollie's clear agenda is, to win the Champions League. Champions
Yeah,
League
I've
specialist.
always said that Champions League is the only competition worth caring about.
Yeah.
Other than that year that Liverpool won it.
The Premier League is just a series of glorified friendlies, isn't it?
Exactly. It's just it's a joke, especially considering the country's going to be in lockdown soon and the Premier League is still going on. I mean, it's fake competition, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think regional travel shouldn't be allowed, but European travel should definitely
European travel's fine.
So let's kick things off. We want to actually start off on a slightly different note. We want to give some praise to a Manchester United player, but more importantly, a Premier League football player who's doing so well and using the position that he has in this world to bring so much good. Is Sir Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's officially a Sir yet, but I'll just call him Sir
He
Marcus
should be.
Rashford. Yeah. Marcus Rashford MBE, what an amazing month he has. Some of his highlights is over this lockdown period, extending his scheme to ensure that the less fortunate children who require free school meals do not go hungry. He's challenged the government, and in a way he won that challenge because his Twitter feed became a kind of almost like a Just Eat of places that were offering help to those less fortunate. So an absolute amazing job there. He's had retweets left, right, and center. So a hell of a lot of coverage over the places that were giving away food for free. He's also had celebrated a birthday this month. He's also given Anthony Martial a goal in the Champions League. What a man, to just say I'm not going to
scored a hat trick as well.
He scored the quickest hat trick in the Champions League as a substitute. I just thought we'd start off on a very positive note and praise Rashford to use his position that he has for such good. What do you think about what he's done, Imti?
Yeah, I mean, you rarely see any celebrities use their platform for this kind of endeavor, especially because Rashford's come through this kind of system himself, where he's had the free school meals, that kind of stuff. So to remember where he started and stuff, and now try and give back as much as he has. Yeah, it's pretty good. Especially when in this kind of pandemic that's going on at the moment, and the government refusing to act, he's taking things into his own hands. And yeah, can't say highly enough about him, really. I guess it's just well done.
I think it says it all because you very rarely get a football player who can almost get United, you almost get a backing from across the whole country, regardless of what team you support. Probably unless you score a hat trick in the World Cup final for England, but
even then, I'm sure there'd be people that
for a week
find something to moan about.
Yeah, and so to be able to do that, to almost unite a nation, and everyone gets behind him, and everyone's so proud of him. For us as Manchester United fans, yourself and I'm extremely proud. If I had a young child myself, I would point at Rashford and I'd say this is a hell of a role model to have in life, for all he's achieved, not just professionally as a sportsman, but for what he's achieved at such a young age as well. Off the pitch is remarkable. All credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken between ourselves before about now that we're basically in our, well, I guess mid to late 20s now. That we sometimes find it weird getting players that are younger than us on our back of our shirts, that kind of stuff. But I think this has got me thinking that I think I might have to get a Rashford shirt just because of the stuff he's done. You'd be proud to walk around wearing that.
Yeah, completely agree with you. For me, it's a choice between Rashford and Igalo. For the time Igalo wished me a happy birthday, but it wasn't my birthday, but I would still appreciate the sentiment. But in all seriousness, I completely agree with what you said. So speaking of Marcus Rashford and how great he's doing. Let's switch to the recent game on the weekend, Premier League, Manchester United versus Arsenal, in
Yeah.
which his performance wasn't as impressive as it has been off the pitch over the last month. It would, to be honest, it's probably a harsh way for me to introduce the game because we didn't really have much to do, but that was my segue. Manchester United versus Arsenal. First things first, formations, because it's the first thing I saw before the game. Obviously, Arteta goes with his traditional five at the back now, or three at the back, whatever you want to call it, with wing backs.
Was
Um,
it that? Was it that few? When I looked at the formation, I thought it looked more like eight at the back, if you include Leno.
yeah, and then he's obviously got
Um,
the two CMs as well, who are genuinely more defensively inclined. What do you think of this tactic then? Because I know we kind of we mentioned it on a previous pod, but it
yeah.
seems like that now is the go-to strategy for Arsenal, isn't it? And it is working essentially.
I mean, yeah. When you got players like Aubameyang up front, I guess if you keep yourself in the game, he's going to get a chance at some point. I didn't see the game, which was probably lucky from my side. It sounds like I've missed. I chose a good game to miss. Um, but I understand he missed a reasonably good chance before he had the penalty. But using an on-form Aubameyang, you'd probably expect him to put those kind of ones away. And then they got the penalty, which was their lucky break. Bit of moment of stupidity from Pogba. Um, but yeah, so then when you've got so many defensive-minded players on the other side, then yeah, if you can craft yourself one good chance, I mean, yeah, it's a way to play. But my thoughts would be, I guess, if perception is everything, right? If that was Mourinho playing that kind of football, he'd probably be getting slated everywhere, including Arsenal fans. If Mourinho was their manager and he was playing like that, I don't think they'd be too happy. But for some reason, Arteta gets a free pass and he can do whatever he wants. I guess I don't know. What do you think?
It does make me wonder because he obviously, he's got the job after being the understudy to Pep Guardiola, and it makes me think, what did he learn from Pep? Because he doesn't play that sort of football. So that's just an interesting thought, and obviously, I'd love to see Arsenal play that football because why not? It's
Yeah,
always good to see any team play very good, high quality football. Um, at the time, I remember Nuno was being linked with the job, the Wolves manager, and I remember I was
yeah,
saying to a couple of my friends who are Arsenal fans, "You don't want Nuno. You don't want Nuno. Nuno is a five at the back manager, and it worked
yeah.
well for Wolves because of the quality of the players there. They're more defensively minded, and they got quality strikers up front in Jimenez. But I said I don't think that would suit Arsenal. But now I think I'm eating my words because I can't really, what's the difference really? They play now. They play a very similar style of football. I think Arteta and
Yeah,
Nuno.
I think it's only seating them just because the sheer number of defensive players they put on the pitch. When you look at the starting lineups, obviously the Leno in goal, you give them that they have to play a goalkeeper, but then
Too
they
late.
played was it Gabriel, Holding, and who was the third centre back?
I think the third centre back was Bellerin. Or Tierney. He played Tierney, sorry, and he played Bellerin at wing back.
Yeah, Bellerin at wing back, and then across the middle
Saka
there,
on the left.
Partey, who's defensive minded, El Neni defensive minded. Was Saka playing
Yeah,
with them?
Saka
Actually,
played left wing back for them.
yeah. So then, so that's essentially that's that eight at the back I was joking about. And then they either left there the three up front, Willian, Lacazette, and Aubameyang, just to do whatever, I guess.
So the first kind of 15, 20 minutes of the game, Arsenal actually impressively pressed from the front, very much pinned in the United back line. Lindelof, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, they really had no kind of route out. And
Yeah,
they did that very well. I did say at the time to a friend who I was speaking to, I said they won't be able to keep it up past the 35th because you very rarely see a professional team be able to keep up a press that long.
yeah,
And that was the case because United then did go on the front foot, didn't capitalise. We had a really good chance with between Rashford and Greenwood, pretty much to run this our only really good chance of the game, and that was it. But for all of Arsenal's dominance, and they did dominate the majority of that first half, I was actually surprised that they didn't come out with a goal because you got a striker like Aubameyang and William's quite seasoned within the league. Lacazette, I don't know, he seems to be quite hit and miss from what I hear from Arsenal fans, particularly after the last game against Leicester where apparently he missed a sitter. I'm actually surprised that they never scored at all in that half, and it if you think about it, this was a very good game from Arsenal, right? And for Arsenal fans, this was a big win for them. The same way it would have been if it was the other way around. But to have only won 1-0 from a penalty mistake, despite effectively dominating the game, it is, I don't know, it was very strange to me still. And I still think Arsenal got a long way to come in beating top six teams. I think it was their first win against a top six team away since 2015, since City Man
Yeah.
City. So I think it is. I don't know. I'm not too sure if this was a one-off for Arsenal or this is Arsenal doing well or United just being astonishingly bad. In the
Well,
past,
go on. Yeah. Well, you look at United's home form this season. So what is it? Take the Champions League out of it. It's Palace defeat, Arsenal now defeat. I'm sure we lost another game as well, right? It's 3 home defeat.
Spurs have
Spurs defeat. Yeah, how can I forget that? Spurs defeat.
Brighton post-match goal win.
And then Chelsea draw. So that's 4 home games. Probably what, 2 goals scored?
Yeah.
2 goals scored in those 4 home games. God knows how many conceded. That's what, not 10 goals conceded in those 4. And 1 point gained. I mean, that is appalling home form.
It is. It really is. So what is the case here? Because look, we obviously all know post-Fergie, Old Trafford has not been the fortress that it once was.
Yeah.
But right now, I think the whole that goes out the window with no fans. The stadium itself, I don't think is intimidating enough to a professional player without the fans in it. So just what is it? Is it that teams now come to United and they say it doesn't really matter that we're playing?
Well, I think especially under Ollie, there's always been the kind of impression that if you sit back and just, in fact, to be honest, it's probably since post Fergie, right? If you sit back, sometimes United lack ideas. When Bruno came in, that started to stop.
Yeah.
We were able to break down the stubborn teams, and especially if in the post-lockdown period when teams scored against us, if they scored first, it kind of got back to that old thing of the worst thing you could do against United is score first, because then that made them even more fired up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. At the moment, just something's not right at home, which is really strange. Because away from home, it's still pretty good. 5 wins out of 5, and I think the club record amount of wins away in a row, which I think is 13 games now away from home wins in a row, which is pretty good.
I think when teams come to Old Trafford, like you said, they set up shop because it's an effective tactic. It's also a legitimate tactic. And they set up shop, and we are very, I think, infamously now, when those teams set up shop, we just can't break them down. There's so much passing outside the box in a square and, to the wings, but you very rarely will get a nailed on ball put into the box. You very rarely will get a kind of quick first time play within the box. It is something that I think as a team needs to be addressed, because you'll end up having Lindelof and Maguire playing almost in the final third for the opposition, but we're still not a threat. That's how high up the team will be, and I don't know. It's like it's been years since I've seen us break down a press like that. Not a press, sorry, a kind of compact. You'll have about 9 men. Men behind.
I think you mentioned width. I think that's one of the things that when you're trying to play against a team that's quite stubborn and set up defensively, you want to stretch the pitch. You want to make the pitch as big as possible, right? And I like our fullbacks. They're pretty good defensively. And they're starting to show some progress going forward.
Yeah.
But they can't do it all on their own. And then you look at the formation we played at the weekend. Basically, 6 players in the middle of the pitch. So if you count Fred, McTominay, Pogba, Bruno, those are your 4 sort of central midfielders. Rashford and Greenwood playing as strikers. That's all down the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
So if you pack the middle of the pitch and you've got no options out on the wing, I'm not surprised that we can't break teams down. Because that you're not stretching them. You're just, everything's going to try and go through the middle, probably the most crowded area of the pitch. If you're playing against a team that's playing 3 centre backs, 2 central midfielders, etc., that middle of the pitch is just there's only so much space that you can find.
I think so. I think I said during the summer before the season started that in my agenda against Ed Woodward / displeasure of the lack of signing of Sancho, I said that I'm not going to turn on Ollie this season because Ed did this, blah blah blah. Okay, Ed, you win. So essentially, what I think Yeah, and I don't like criticizing Oli. I don't like criticizing any football manager. I think just the formation, he got it wrong, playing a diamond against a team that's putting such a stress, so much stress on the defensive side of their tactics.
Yep.
I think we got it wrong. Look, against Leipzig, he got it right. He got it right for a reason, because Leipzig are a very attacking team, high press team, and obviously I think Ollie's tactic was, let's ride out the first 30, 35, and 40 minutes. They'll tire out, and then from that point we can capitalize, and it worked really well. Again, it worked really well because they pressed very high. The whole team pressed very high. Arsenal pressed in a different way. Arsenal was the front line pressed, and the back line stayed very much compact at the back.
Yep.
And we just couldn't break them down. I think that's, and I think as a football manager, you have to kind of adapt to the opponents you're playing. The way RB play and the way Arsenal play, I couldn't contrast in two different ways much more. Like literally, one's a very attacking team and one is a very defensive team. And I think to have tried to deploy the same tactics against both was a bit naive.
Yep.
You did switch it up to the 4-2-3-1 because obviously you do need some dominance in that midfield if you're playing against so many defensive-minded players, and we did have a much better second half. It was, for a neutral, a very boring second half. There wasn't
Yep.
much excitement whatsoever, but in the sense that we then kind of countered their press that they had emphasized so highly in the first half. Maybe, what do you think? Was it a personnel thing? I heard some suggestions that Van der Beek should be in, but then based on what I saw against RB, a good performance, but was it around the 65th minute? He got taken off, and you could see he was tired. He was exhausted.
Yeah.
You could see him breathing heavy, and when a professional player is doing that, that means they've got nothing left in the tank. They need to come off. So maybe,
But I do wonder with him, with that, is maybe because he's not being given much of a chance at the moment. He feels like he has to go 150% every time, every time he's on the pitch. So maybe that's why he's shattered. But yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with him so far whenever he's played, and definitely the way Pogba's playing at the moment, I don't think he should be starting personally. Which that's hurts me to say because I really want Pogba to do well, but I mean, at this point, he's giving away more stupid penalties than he is doing anything, positive. Like since he's come back from injury, I think I can remember more penalties he's given away than attacking contributions.
this sums up 2020 because we've gone from Pogba doing his strange run up to try and score pens to just giving away 3 penalties. Like, what's going on?
I don't know. Is it some weird protest about not being the penalty taker anymore? I don't know what it is. Because I can remember the West Ham one where he stuck his hands up to defend his face. Spurs won the tackle against Davies. This one yesterday, and they were all pretty avoidable as well.
Yeah,
I don't know whether it's lack of motivation, lack of concentration. I don't know what it is, but it's a problem because his contract's out next season. So he's definitely not playing well enough to earn a new contract at the moment. Well, certainly not on his wage. If he's willing to take a wage cut, maybe. But then you risk losing him for not much if
what do you think?
If you let it go on much longer. But
what do you think he'd go for if we were to sell him this summer or January even?
yeah.
Worst case.
So if he doesn't sign a new deal, January maybe 50 million, summer 30 million. Maybe if he's playing that way at the moment.
I could see what you're saying because let's be honest, if he does move on, I can't see him going to another Premier League team. And I think like if he does possibly go to Juve, Madrid, I don't know. Madrid have got a history for kind of giving the top dollars for a player, but if he goes to, I think Juve, I don't know, maybe Bayern, PSG, one of these teams, I think we'd be very lucky to get more than 50.
Yeah, that's the thing. Usually, when you look at when Madrid signed players, like when they took Beckham from us, he was playing pretty well.
Yeah.
When they took Ronaldo, he was the Ballon d'Or holder. Yeah. When they took Bale from Spurs, he just had his best goal scoring season. It was 24 goals or whatever.
Yeah.
James, he hadn't really shone at club level, but he just had that amazing World Cup. I'm trying to think of it. Even Kaká was pretty good when they signed him.
Yeah.
They don't really sign players that are obviously Pogba. We know what he can do, and he's a World Cup winner, etc. But they don't really sign players that often that are going through. I don't know, maybe 18 months of bad form.
It's a good point.
So it'd be a different situation. Like, would they then? But then I guess it depends. The marketing thing of I was listening to another United podcast, another football podcast, sorry, Talk of the Devils on the Athletic.
Yeah,
and they were saying even though Pogba hasn't been playing as much recently, when they went to Paris, Pogba was all the headlines. I mean, obviously it's going to France, but Pogba was still the headlines, and they were shocked when they found out Pogba wasn't starting. You know, they were thinking, is there something wrong with him? Is he injured? They didn't understand over there that at the moment, you know, he's not in the best of form. So maybe from a marketing side, Madrid might still see he's worth money. I don't know.
I was going to say,
Um,
if a club is run from a commercial perspective, he's so
yeah.
incredibly attractive because of his kind of following and the money he can bring in on kind of adverts and all that other
Yeah.
kind of marketing type deal. So yeah, possibly still a very attractive.
But then equally, yeah. If he gets to the end of the season and he's only got one season left, Madrid might think as well. Then you know we'll just wait it out, see, see what happens, because they could then, you know, foreign clubs can sign, they can make a contract offer 6 months before the contract ends, right? So they'd only have to wait to January to actually negotiate with him.
I think, are we in season
Um,
5 of Pogba, right? At United.
I have no idea, but I think it's at least four.
It's season 4, 5, or 6, or something along those lines. And
Yeah.
my worry is, would if he leaves this January, he leaves a flop essentially, and that is to me devastating because he was he's one of the technically best footballers we've had in the club since
I
like
think
the 2000 onward period. Like
I
he's
think a flop would be slightly harsh, but he certainly didn't. He certainly hasn't lived up to expectations yet.
yeah,
Which, as you say, in the fourth or fifth year or whatever it is starting to be starting to get to the point where, I mean, me and you've probably defended him more than more than anyone, but it's starting to get to the point where he's beyond defendable now. I
yeah,
mean, you can't. It's not his fault that he got coronavirus and stuff, but you know how many seasons are going to be stop start with him. You know, his first season here, it was a pretty positive season. He did pretty well.
yeah, he did.
Second season, he fell out with Mourinho. Um, Third season, was that still under Mourinho? I can't even remember. I can't remember now. Maybe the third season was Mourinho / Oli taking over. So he had a slow start to the season because he'd fallen out with Mourinho. When Oli took over, he suddenly became what everyone wanted him to be. You know, scoring, assisting. He was doing everything. It was brilliant. But then obviously he got injured.
Yep,
He had a really long injury, but then he also was talking about leaving in the press, that kind of stuff. Come back towards the end of the last season. He played fine. He wasn't amazing, but he wasn't bad. He actually made a pretty decent impact for towards the end of the lockdown. But then this season again, so he picked up the virus at the start of the year, which again is not his fault. But then I kind of use that as an excuse for the first few weeks, saying, oh, you know, he's not fully fit. But now we're 2 months into the season. When's it going to get started from him? And I read an article recently saying that sources inside United think his best position also as such at the moment is making a cameo appearance off the bench.
Wow.
What on earth? how has it come to that they think Paul Pogba's best position for United is sitting on the bench and then coming on with half an hour to go?
That's incredible. I know. I
Yeah.
don't think that's. I can't agree with that. Look, I don't know who the sources are inside United. Hopefully, it's not Oli. But I don't know. I just can't even comprehend that because of the kind of the quality of the player he is. I agree with you. I think since he's had this coronavirus, maybe that's maybe impacted his fitness. He did kind of attempt to justify the penalty he gave away by saying that maybe he was a bit out of breath and that made him do a stupid mistake. But again, I think he's just. I don't know. I don't know how to. I really want to continue to defend the guy, but it's just one of those. I think the best thing for him now would be to pick up a in commas knock in training and just take a couple of games on the side. Yeah, take a couple of games on the sideline and just get your head back. Maybe that gives Van der Beek or someone an opportunity. Recall Andreas Pereira from loan. I'm kidding.
Please no.
And just, I think he probably needs a game or two because I think right now this is for me, as far as I can remember, his worst run of games for United, and I think he probably needs to take a step back because I don't know. There's two types of players. I think those that will just play through it, and those that just probably need to get out of the spotlight for a bit and come back when everything's calmed down a bit. And I think that's probably what he needs to do.
That's the thing with Pogba. This is not really his fault, but I don't think he'll ever be out of the spotlight. Even if even when he was injured, he was still the focus of most of the media, that kind of stuff. I think the only way he's going to get out of the spotlight is leaving the club. Because you see, maybe, I don't know, when he goes away for France, he seems to turn it on all of a sudden.
He does, yeah, he definitely does.
So maybe it's just I don't know. It's just not going to work out for him at United, and it's time to call it a day. I don't know.
Part of
When you look at we do have other options at the moment. That was the thing I enjoyed about the Van der Beek signing and stuff is, previously if we were looking at if Pogba left, we would have been in a pretty dire situation, right? When you look back to the beginning of last season, what our midfield was looking like without Pogba, we were thinking this is going to be grim, right? But now Bruno's come in and Bruno's done what we wanted Pogba to do basically. And we have other options now as well. Van der Beek, even a couple of the youngsters that are coming through. I don't think it's as bad of a. I don't think he's as important to us as he once was.
I think I completely agree with you. If you look at the midfielders we had at the start of last season, there was no Van der Beek, no Fernandes, and like you said, we're kind of desperate for Pogba to be in that starting 11, because otherwise the prospects aren't looking fantastic. It's probably the Lingard or Pereira starting instead of him, and nobody wants to really see that at the time. But I think, as you said, we can afford for him to take a little break for now. I don't want him to. I really don't want to sell him. There's part of me that just wants him always. I just want him to score goals and to prove people. But again, unless the guy has a 15 or 20 goal season, he's never going to shut anyone up. Or unless we win a title or a Champions League, even a FA Cup or Europa doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything in the sense that, to the rivals, it would be disregarded. To United, I'll take that all day, because any silverware for me is any recognised silverware is something that I'd appreciate at this time. But again, I do appreciate that we have got other players now that can pick up that position.
I'm with you. I want him to do well. When he came back to United, it was a marquee signing. We were in the Europa League at that time. We were thinking, for him to come at that time, he's got a point to prove, that kind of stuff. But I think I'm kind of at the point where I'm over it now. I think it's hard, now we can't have these kind of emotional attachments to these players because they just keep letting us down.
I think for the sake of his own career and the same kind of things I was saying about De Gea a couple seasons, a season ago, when he was having was that them two in particular, disregarding Fernandes or anyone else, them two, if they had moved on to other teams in Europe, such as Juve or Madrid or Barca, PSG, they would have won titles, minimum titles, and possibly Champions Leagues. And I think for players of that quality, they deserve that. They deserve to retire and be able to say, this is my trophy cabinet. And I think the same stands now for Pogba. If he was to move on, he's going to guarantee himself titles, and at least domestic titles, and then possibly.
That's the thing. I think talent-wise, there's no argument there. But De Gea, at least, you can say De Gea has given his all, right? And you can say that he carried the team for a long time. So I think if he left, no one would begrudge him a move to like a Madrid or Juve or something. But I think if Pogba left, I don't think he would be as fondly remembered. Just because, I just don't think he's fulfilled what. Maybe we had unrealistic expectations. I don't know. I never really watched him much in Italy because I don't really watch Italian football. Maybe we had unrealistic expectations, but we've seen on occasion and for France that he is a world-class player.
He is, and maybe possibly, an argument there is that for France he has other world-class players around him, and at United it's only really till we've got Bruno in the squad that we could even have someone that's in that bracket.
But that's the thing. That was the argument. Well, I think at the start our team was pretty good when he first came in. Then you could argue, there was a period where we were getting rid of all of our stars and he was the only one left.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at the team now, the team is good enough for him to thrive in that team.
Yeah, particularly with the development of Martial and Rashford.
I mean, he's got players that are going to make runs for him to play his passes. He's got Bruno as an outlet. He's got players behind him that will win the ball. Like Fred's, I've seen some stats about Fred's, like the amount of. I think he's won the ball back the most out of anyone since he came to England. Which you consider how bad he was in his first season, to then turn that around to be since he came, like that's pretty good. So the players are around Pogba, I think, for him to succeed at the moment, but I don't know what it is. Maybe that injury he had that kept him out for a long time, maybe that knackered him. I don't know. Maybe that was too much.
It is the case. It's possible.
He was saying you said one of his excuses was maybe he was out of breath. Maybe he can't keep up anymore. I don't know.
Possibly it could be
Um,
that. Maybe the intensity there, and also like Bellerin he's a fast, nippy player,
yep.
um, and yeah, maybe he just wasn't sharp enough for that. But overall, look, we sit in 15th place in the table. It's not the end of the world because still a win could take you like about 5, 6 places up. City are 10th place, and a win would take them to second.
Yep.
And they've got a game in hand and probably will achieve that win. But yeah, look, we're 15th. It's going to be a tough season. It's going to be a tough season. It's a weird
Well,
season,
we've got Everton away next,
which will be a really
which
good
obviously
game.
our away form is very good, and Everton have lost their last 2 games, and Richarlison is still suspended, which is handy.
Yeah.
Um, but on current form, you probably, I don't know, maybe a draw would probably be
So the good thing is
probably be
Everton
that
are
kind of
having a
thing.
bit of
Or
a goalkeeping crisis at the moment. So they dropped Pickford for the first time since they've signed him in the Premier League.
yeah,
The replacement, and his name slips on mind, didn't have a particularly great game. The
I think
goal,
Sanchez is his name. I think.
I think he's Swedish. I can't remember his surname.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But then I think his name is still Sanchez.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Let
Um,
me
and
don't quote me on that.
And from the goals, I saw the highlights, and the goals that Newcastle scored. One was a pen, and the other, I think, yeah, probably a better keeper might have saved it. It wasn't something that was unsavable. Um, so I wonder what Ancelotti will do in that department. Also defensively, I don't think Everton are very strong. So I
Yeah,
could possibly see us getting a result because I don't think they're the kind of team that will pack they will have a very disciplined defensive line. I think
yeah.
Dinier's back, I think, because his ban was reduced to one game.
His was reduced to 1 game. Yeah,
Yeah, so they will have Digne back, and he's effective on the left side. But I think it's gonna be a good game. I wouldn't be surprised if Calvert-Lewin scores again. He just seems to be scoring every time, and I wouldn't mind because he's
yeah.
in my fantasy team. Um,
Same.
so if we're gonna lose, at least bag me some fantasy points now.
uh,
Hopefully, like a 3-1 win or something. I don't have any United defenders in, so I don't need a clean sheet.
yeah.
Um,
Small correction. So his name is Robin Olsen. So I don't know where I got Sanchez from.
Close enough.
I'm sure there's a new keeper. There's a new keeper for some team in the Premier League that's called Sanchez. So, but it's not the Everton guy. And Ancelotti said that Pickford will be back in for
Interesting,
the United game. So
interesting.
um,
Some of the other results on the weekend. Just a quick recap: Liverpool won 2-1. Probably main talking point from the Liverpool game, and quite a similar theme as well in the Spurs game where Spurs won 2-1. Is this kind of issue of diving again has become a bit more apparent in the world of football, social media, and match of the day, etc.
yeah,
My view at the moment is, first of all, I think diving isn't as penalized as it once was. There was that season where I think, I can't remember, I think it might have been the 2012 season, around that period where the referees were really onto the diving, where I remember Ashley Young, anytime he went to ground, would be getting a yellow card. And there was a big agenda against diving. I remember Drogba was getting a lot of accusations. A bunch of players would get strongly accused of it. And it kind of worked in a way because it, if anything, prevents, well, deters the player from continuing to do so. I think
yeah,
as of this season and the last season since VAR's come in, I don't know if VAR almost encourages the dive because the strikers now or the player now knows that there's going to be a review, and if you can force some contact on the review in slow mo, they can't judge the pressure or the strength of the contact. If there's contact there, you're given a compelling case to win yourself a penalty or a red card or whatever it is you're trying to achieve by doing so. Um, there's been quite a lot of quite two players in the spotlight at the moment around this whole agenda of diving, and that's Mo Salah and Harry Kane. Um,
yeah.
I think, first of all, did you see both of the incidents, separate incidents?
So I saw both. Yeah. I think it's a tough one. I mean, speaking about diving in general, even when they give dives now, they don't book them for some reason, which is really annoying.
Oh yeah, and they should
Um,
because they need
yeah.
a punishment.
So that suggests that I mean that encourages people to dive almost because if they know they're not going to get booked, then they think, all right, would might as well give it a go. On the two recent ones, Salah I think he's notorious for doing it now, and it doesn't get mentioned as much as it should. But even Souness, who he started his sentence by saying, "And I am a Liverpool supporter." He said, Salah does this a lot. Um, I think there was contact, but for me, contact doesn't always mean that it's a penalty or that it's a foul. Football's a contact sport. Um, so when you look at, I mean, some people will argue, yep, there was contact, but then the way he went down, there's no way the contact made him go down like that. You know what I mean? He got tapped on his foot and he jumped down like he'd been shot.
He got tapped and
Um,
his knees were almost in his chest. And personally, if I play a lot of amateur football, and if a player did that to me as a centre back, honestly, I wouldn't even be able to describe probably what would come out of my mouth.
it's crazy, right?
And not even from myself, probably his own teammates would probably do the
Yeah,
same. And it's a bit of a shame, professional football, because one of the podcasts I was listening to, actually, the guy was talking about he has a lot of family in America, and when they come over, they tend to put the Premier League on. And he said that sometimes when the players drop like that, the people who aren't used to watching the professional football, they say, why do the footballers do that? Why is it when they get touched, they literally like throw themselves into the ground? And it's a shame, because part of me thinks they do it because, first of all, obviously they're trying to win a pen, free kick, red card, whatever it is. Second of all, I think the refereeing should be of high enough standard that they should be able to judge even if a player stays on his feet if it's a foul or not.
yeah.
And until we ever get to that stage, players will not stop doing it, which is a big shame, because I think it's not a skill that people should try to learn as part of the game. You know, it's not anything admirable.
And that's the thing. It is something they learn though, right? Because you mentioned amateur football. That doesn't happen in
No,
amateur football. It seems to only happen at the elite level of the sport. Even lower leagues, you probably say it probably doesn't happen.
no, it's
So
the elite level.
yeah.
And I
And
understand.
then I think the only thing I'd say in defense of Salah, I guess, is one thing that's a bit annoying is that when you look at how people reacted to Kane's thing, like the commentators talking about Kane said it was clever piece of play from clever piece of play from Kane. And you do wonder that because he's English that he's getting a better lick of things from the commentators, but I think his was a lot worse if you ask me. He put Lallana in a situation where there was going to be contact no matter what. So I mean, yeah, you could argue with both. Yeah, there was contact, but with Kane's, he went looking for that contact and he and he got it.
So what was interesting, as I was prepping to record this episode, I typed in Harry Kane dive, and under the assumption I was going to probably see something recent, and there was headlines, videos from as far back as like 2014, 15,
yeah,
and you don't really associate with him. But then, obviously, look, let's rewind, take a step back to the World Cup. We're both England fans, so obviously we were at the time very happy, probably slightly biased. Um, Kane won a load of penalties, and he won them in a way where he would force the opposition to foul him. So he would kind of wrap
yeah,
himself around the defender in the box as a corner was getting swung in, and make it so that the defender, unless he chops his arms off, he's gonna touch him. And I think against Brighton, and I think he might have done it against, was it Burnley this season, he takes a look over his shoulder at the defender as the ball's in the air, and he knows the defender's going to jump for it, or in this case, the opposition, because Lallana's our defender. And as soon as they jump, he just bends his back over as if he's been like, forced over, and all that does is make the person who's jumped for the ball literally just fly over the guy, because there's nothing to lean on when you're in the air, and then the ref gives a foul for it, and a pen or a free kick, or depending on where it is. I think it is conniving. It is, I don't know, in inverted commas, clever in a way that he's given his team a big advantage from it. But at the same time, I think, as a professional sport, it's not something that, if we want to talk about conniving and clever, then why don't someone just stick the ball under their top and run down the length of the line? Because it gives you an unfair advantage.
yeah.
So I think,
I guess it's technically not handball.
yeah, or Flamey could have just like wedged it in his afro and just
Yeah,
ran. But in all seriousness, it is clever and it gives your team the advantage. But at the same time, there needs to be a limit of fairness in there. And if the alternative is the player can't challenge Kane in the air, then that's just idiotic, because then you might as well just give Kane the ball and say, go for it, have a shot at goal, or have a header. So I think something needs to be done
yeah.
at the officiating level where
It's tough, I guess, because it's similar to the handball thing where it got to the point where you could argue the players could just kick the ball at someone's hand
yeah,
and it'd be a penalty.
the first
So
few weeks of the Premier League, they could have genuinely done that and got a penalty.
yeah. So it's one of those releases. I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, something needs to be done.
Yeah, certainly. So kind of
Um,
upcoming interesting fixtures this weekend. United, Everton, you touched upon. City versus Liverpool, which I think will be another good game. Liverpool are really struggling, I think, without Van Dijk, and City are, all guns blazing most of the time in terms of attacking. So I think,
well, you say Liverpool are struggling, but they are. top of the league still.
They are top of the league, but I don't think. I think the last time they kept a clean sheet was against Chelsea, and when you
Yeah.
consider the caliber
Oh
of
yeah,
their
even with Van Dijk, the defense has been struggling. Right, they conceded 15 this season, which I think is the most. Oh, sorry, West Brom now are now taking the crown for the most because they conceded 2 against Fulham tonight. But Liverpool are second in terms of goals conceded, which is pretty crazy.
it's crazy when you consider, I don't like to talk about, well, I don't like stressing on how much a player's been paid for, but if you consider they've got Alisson and Van Dijk, who they spent quite a bit of chunk of money on, you'd think that those two are arguably best in class in their positions in the league.
I don't know. I mean, I heard Liverpool have spent no money ever, and which makes them the best champions in the history of everything because their net spend is like minus £1 billion or something. And
I heard they're allowed to do that because they sold Coutinho to Barcelona. Um,
yeah,
But it should be an
but yeah,
interesting game. I don't know if this will be the game where Liverpool will possibly be exposed at the back. There's a new guy on the block.
maybe
I think he said, was it something Phillips? The guy,
Phillips, Nathan Phillips,
yeah,
I think
played
his
at
name is.
centre back. He looked okay. I watched the game. He seemed all right. I don't think he's the right man to play with Gomez. I think Gomez relied a lot on Van Dijk's presence to have such a good season.
He might not be the right guy, but I think at the moment they don't really have much choice.
Yeah, they don't have a choice.
Because Fabinho's injured as well. They sold Lovren. Yeah, Fabinho, Van Dijk, Matip, sorry, all injured, and Lovren obviously gone. Yeah, that's it really.
Lovren scoring 30-yard bangers for Zenit. I don't know if you caught that recently. He scored a goal from outside the box, crashed it in from outside the box, hits the post, hits the goalkeeper's head and goes in. Lovely goal, Lovren. And then Villa versus Arsenal as well. And in my little pre-match notes, I've put this in brackets, box office. Sorry, Villa fans. I think you're probably down possibly almost 50.
Was that pay-per-view again?
It's pay-per-view again for Villa.
Oh my god! I really feel bad for Villa fans. That's like 3 in a row.
Yeah,
you got. I mean, we're coming to the end of the episode, I guess, but we'll briefly touch on that. I think now that there's going to be another lockdown and furloughs being brought back and stuff, surely they've got to make the games free again.
There's been a lot of talk that apparently Sky Sports and BT Sports themselves are not happy. I'm assuming something to do with
because people think that, well, obviously everyone knows the Premier League are money grabbers and probably BT and Sky are as well, but it looks bad on them as well. Yeah, especially when you've been giving it away for free for so long, to start charging for it, it's not a good look. Really.
They received the brunt of it, and if I'm being honest, look, I became a subscriber to both Sky Sports and BT Sport over lockdown period. I never had been before that, and I'm really impressed with it enough to want to keep it. So I think they should continue going with the free stuff, and long term they'll probably come off looking better for it, and also giving the nation something to enjoy watching whilst they're stuck in the house.
And I mean, especially for me as well, like with Sky, you pay so much money for Sky. And then they used to advertise stuff like Friday Night Football and whatnot as being a big thing, more football, blah blah blah. But now they're charging £15 extra for that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
But yeah, I guess we'll call it a day there. Then we've covered a lot. We'll be back hopefully next week, hopefully with some positive results. Because United have become basically midweek FC. They always win in midweek and give up on the weekend. But hopefully we'll be a bit more positive, and hopefully we'll have more to talk about than just United as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed there's something interesting in the league. I've got my eye on the Liverpool City game. Don't let me down, Manchester City.
But yeah, no worries. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, everyone.